Have you ever noticed how the narcissist looks most powerful right before they collapse? Right when you finally stop caring? Welcome to Healing Mind. Today we're talking about what really happens when you stop feeding a narcissist and reclaim your peace, power, and identity. If you find this helpful, please like the video and subscribe to Healing Mind for more healing insights. For years, you've been asking yourself why your home can feel so dense and charged, like there's thunder in the walls, but no rain ever comes. You've watched the narcissist glide through life wearing that polished armor of confidence as if nothing touches them. But let's take that mask off. Let's look at what happens when the supply dries up and the cost of their habits finally shows up. Picture the stillness in a house where a predator lives. It isn't calm, it's a low electric tension that keeps your body alert. You assume they're stressed about work or replaying some conflict, but what's happening is far more primal. They're in a kind of emotional starvation, desperate for the energy they've been pulling from you for so long. Here's the secret most people never name out loud. Why does intimacy with a narcissist feel cold? Like you're lying on a table being examined instead of being loved. While you were hoping for a soulmate experience, you were being analyzed by someone who feeds on reactions. Their real addiction isn't romance, and it isn't even the act itself. It's the extraction. They need to see your warmth dim because it convinces them they can feel something in their own chest. And you felt that sudden switch, haven't you? That instant drop where they become distant before the moment has even ended. It leaves you confused, asking yourself if any of it was real because they take what they wanted and then detach as if you're suddenly invisible. What makes it darker is the story they want you to believe. They want you to think their withdrawal is deliberate, like they're choosing to punish you with silence and distance. But the truth is, they're the one in pain. Every day without a fresh hit is a day when their buried self-hatred gets louder inside them. They're not thriving in the absence. They're spiraling in it. Your empathy became their last reliable source of relief, the only place they knew how to refill themselves. So when you stop offering that energy, it doesn't just annoy them, it threatens the whole system they've built to avoid facing themselves. That's why we're pulling the curtain back, so you can finally see the poverty behind the performance. People assume these types are untouchable, smooth, and endlessly in control. In reality, they're scavengers emotionally, always hunting for something to make them feel alive. They chase highs that leave them emptier afterward. They're suffocating in their own inner vacuum, and your heart has been the oxygen tank they keep reaching for. When sexual supply gets cut off, they can enter a dissociated state where they feel unreal, like they can't fully sense their own body or identity. They need the contact, the intensity, the friction of another person's soul to reassure themselves they exist. Without that, it can feel to them like they're dissolving into numbness and static, and they panic. This is what you're witnessing, a breakdown in a system that has been overheated for too long. They've taken from too many people, used too many connections as quick fixes, and now the lag is catching up. Every conquest was less about desire and more about trying to generate a heartbeat inside a hollow chest. As the noise fades, the trauma they never processed starts showing up in their behavior and even in their bodies as a kind of slow decay. That's why their frantic search for new partners isn't really about charm or confidence. It's a survival reflex. They are running from the mirror because the mirror shows them what they can't tolerate, a hollow man with no stable center. They need your submission to feel powerful because they don't have real power over themselves. And when you go cold, when you detach, they don't just lose control of you. They realize they never had control of their own reality either. That's when the mask begins to melt. So let this first part be your safe place of clarity. You've been blaming yourself for the distance, for the emptiness in the bedroom, for the feeling that love kept slipping through your fingers. But that distance was never proof of your inadequacy. It was evidence of their inner breakdown. They started losing the moment you chose your peace over their dopamine hit. And remember this as we go deeper. Their agony is one of the few honest things they will ever truly possess. To understand the narcissist's descent, you have to understand how they treat people in their inner world. In their warped reality, there isn't a clean boundary between self and others. They don't truly meet people, they absorb them. They turn you into an internal object, a version of you that lives inside their head and serves their needs. Once they've converted you into that mental possession, they act like you exist to be used until you finally break. And underneath all their confidence is a nervous system that has been worn down by years of chasing conquest. The rush fades faster each time, so they need more stimulation for less reward. Their emotional circuitry burns out, and they become unable to feel real joy even when they win. Think of it like this: they are a glossy projection that can only stay bright if the data keeps streaming in. You are that data. When the connection gets cut, the image starts to glitch. The confident alpha begins to flicker, and suddenly you see what's underneath: smallness, pettiness, insecurity, a frightened child hiding behind pixels. That exposure feels like death to them. And this is the part people miss. Their constant pursuit was never just about pleasure, it was about regulation. A narcissist cannot soothe their own emotions in a healthy way. They need somewhere to dump what they can't carry. They use you like a filter, like a psychological kidney, to process their toxicity for them. But when partners vanish, the filtering stops, and their poison stays inside, burning them from within. And that brings us to the void at the center of all of it. It isn't just loneliness, it's a spiritual hunger that slowly eats character, empathy, and conscience. It's a hunger that doesn't get satisfied by winning, by sex, by attention, or by control, because none of those things can replace a real human center. The more they feed it, the bigger it grows. The more they take, the more desperate they become. And the moment you stop being available as a source, the emptiness they've been avoiding starts to rise like a flood. That's why your freedom is so threatening to them, and why your clarity is the beginning of your healing. Because they don't have a steady inner compass, they get pushed around by whatever approval they can grab from the outside. When attention and physical access were flowing, they felt bigger than life. But when that rush disappears, they crash hard. And for them, that crash doesn't feel like disappointment. It feels like a kind of inner death. The longer the emptiness lasts, the more their bitterness solidifies into something heavy and rigid. Picture a star that runs out of fuel and starts collapsing under its own weight. That's what happens to them when the supply dries up and their old sources stop working. Their image fades, their reputation takes hits, and they end up stuck in a cold world they created themselves, still searching for someone to feed on but feeling too weighed down to truly recover. Inside them, the chaos becomes louder. They survive by flipping reality around, assigning you the role of the abuser so they can keep believing they're the victim. It's not because the story is true, but because it protects them from facing themselves. Yet as your presence disappears, the coping tricks start to fail. They see you everywhere, not because they miss you as a person, but because they miss what they used to steal from your energy and your emotions. Deep down, they're uncomfortable with real human need, tenderness, and vulnerability because it reminds them of how powerless they feel inside. That's why they can resent you for loving them, and why your care can become something they secretly despise. But in prolonged absence, that disgust turns inward. They begin to hate what they see in the mirror. They're drowning in self-loathing, and the saddest part is that the people they reach for are often the same ones they've already hurt. They are experts at disrupting your internal warning system. They use touch, closeness, and intensity to quiet the alarm bells your intuition was trying to ring. Your body was sensing danger, but your heart was being pulled into confusion. That's a kind of biological manipulation, creating emotional dissonance until you doubt your own instincts. But once you're gone, the pattern changes. Without a host to drain, the parasite has nowhere to send the poison but back into itself. Their breakdown exposes them as a closed system running out of fuel, cooling down toward numbness. And this is where the power starts to shift. Because when the empath finally stops providing warmth, you see the difference between someone who is truly alive inside and someone who has been living off stolen light. The real turning point arrives in the quiet of your indifference. It happens the day you stop explaining yourself, you stop defending your choices, you stop reacting to the bait. This is the plot twist they never planned for, because they've spent years provoking you just to keep their reality anchored. They needed your response like a drug, but now they reach out and find nothing, just deep, cold water. That emptiness terrifies them. When the mirror no longer reflects their importance, they panic like an addict cut off from their source. They may come back with dramatic apologies, fake tears, and big promises, hoping the old strings still work. But you don't move. and your stillness is unbearable to them because it forces them to feel their own irrelevance. This is the moment you realize the abuse was like a filter placed over your eyes. You remove it, and suddenly the truth looks simple, almost clinical. You don't see a powerful figure anymore. You see a frightened, hollow person performing for attention. The rot becomes visible, and your emotions shift. Instead of rage, you feel observation. You become the one who can see clearly without getting pulled in. And when anger doesn't work on you, they often switch tactics. They may lean into strategic victimhood, sudden crises, health scares, money problems, family drama, anything that might trigger your compassion and pull you back into contact. They're trying to load their shame into you, hoping you'll carry it again. But you can sense the calculation now. You recognize the pattern as performance, not truth. As your silence holds, their inner injuries start to worsen because your empathy is no longer there to soften the consequences of their behavior. They begin fighting with other people. They create chaos just to feel something intense. They burn bridges and stir conflict because they can't exist peacefully without a calm center to disturb. You were that center for a long time. And when they realize they can't get you back, they may attempt a final move to protect their ego. They announce you're the problem. They call you the narcissist. They rewrite the story publicly to avoid admitting they've lost control. But that accusation is really a confession of their inner collapse. They're trying to project their own emptiness onto you. And strangely, you feel relief. You accept their exit like a release, and you can almost feel the heaviness lifting as the distance grows. When the abuser is truly gone, the space around you starts to feel different. The air changes, the room feels cleaner, lighter, more yours. You reset your environment, wash the sheets, open the windows, clear the energy in whatever way feels right for you. You realize the darkness wasn't who you are. It was something they carried into your life and tried to normalize. Now that the carrier is gone, your vitality begins to return. You breathe more deeply. You feel yourself coming back online, and you start to treat your body with respect instead of blame, understanding that it was doing its best to survive in a toxic atmosphere. You stop judging the vessel for absorbing the poison. You start nurturing it like it deserves care. With time, you recognize the relationship for what it really was, a harsh initiation that forced you to find your own strength. It pushed you to locate an inner blade, discernment, boundaries, self-respect. In a painful way, it shattered illusions and revealed the sovereign part of you that had been waiting to wake up. Eventually, you reach total detachment. You look back and it doesn't sting the same way. It feels almost like physics, a mechanism you can understand without reliving. Their name becomes something you barely react to. They shrink into the background as a minor malfunction in the larger story of your growth, and the shift becomes absolute. You inhabit your life with a grounded intensity that unsettles weak manipulations. You're not chasing peace anymore. You're living inside it, your home. As we move toward their collapse, remember this: they depend on your reaction to feel real. Your attention gives them shape. Your emotion gives them weight. When you withdraw your focus, you remove them from your universe. That's why they panic. They may try to ignite chaos to pull you back in, even if it destroys their own world. But you're not the firefighter anymore. You're not running toward the flames to prove your goodness. You're watching from higher ground, steady in your own sovereignty, choosing yourself without apology. Watching a narcissist collapse can look like staring into pure emptiness. The moment the empath stops absorbing the poison, the abuser's manufactured identity starts cracking under the pressure of its own hollowness. This is the psychic breakdown they've been dodging since they were young, and it can show up as reckless, frantic behavior that feels almost manic. Their mask doesn't slip gently, it dissolves, and the fallout is often fast and visible. Meanwhile, the healed empath moves through life with quiet dignity and a kind of calm detachment, and that contrast exposes the desperation behind the abuser's performance. Smears lose power when you stop feeding them. Truth has weight, and people eventually notice patterns, how the abuser leaves others drained, confused, and diminished. You're not just a survivor of that cold dissection you lived through. You're the witness who made it out with your sanity intact. Their panic becomes a desperate hunt for replacement supply, but it doesn't exist in your world anymore. They try to find you in every new face, every new interaction, every new person they attempt to use, but no one mirrors the elevated image you once reflected back to them. They're starving for the quality of empathy and presence you carried, but that source is gone for good. The place where they used to refill has shut down permanently, and the harsh reality starts to show in them. They look dull, they look worn, they look brittle. The energy they took from you fades over time, and they have no inner engine that generates real life force. So they repeat the same cycle again and again, chasing smaller highs with weaker connections until the loop becomes their entire existence. They're stuck in a body and mind that slowly closes in, haunted by the memory of what real light once felt like near them. There's something brutally analytical about this stage because it's less about drama and more about consequence. The abuser misjudged the resilience of the empath. They assumed you would break, stay confused, stay available, stay attached. But when you spiritually move on, you don't just escape, you remove the fuel that kept their illusion alive. They become like a person walking around carrying the corpse of their own ego, unable to revive it, and it enrages them that you survived. Every peaceful breath you take feels like poison to their fantasy of control. That's why the collapse often includes obsessive watching from a distance, stalking your happiness, studying your posts, scanning for pain, hoping to find cracks, but they find strength instead, and that strength is deeply destabilizing to them because it disproves their God story. So reclaim what was always yours. Reclaim your space, your voice, your peace, and your right to move through the world with dignity. The person who used intimacy as a weapon, who treated your emotions like fuel, who set fires in your mind and then blamed you for the smoke, they have no authority here anymore. Not in the presence of your clarity, not in the presence of your light. That light isn't meant to keep anyone else alive at your expense. It's meant to warm your own life. It's meant to build something beautiful. It's meant to bring you back to your body, your values, your dreams, and the people who actually respect you. You don't owe your power to anyone who misused it. Their addiction was never something you could cure because it's a debt they can't repay from the inside. They relied on taking, not building. They lived on borrowed energy, borrowed attention, borrowed identity. But your victory is what begins the moment you stop volunteering as supply. It's your health returning. It's your breath deepening. It's your mind getting quiet. It's your spirit coming back online. And from that place, you move through life with the intensity that was always meant to be yours. The performance ends. The mask breaks. The illusion collapses. And what's left is the clean, undeniable truth. You are free, permanently, and no one gets to dim you again. If this spoke to you, like the video, subscribe to Healing Mind and comment, "I reclaim my light," so I know you're choosing yourself.